Programming, movie 4.5. So we've already seen how Boolean operators are extremely useful, and we've also seen how Boolean variables can be used, as in mouse pressed, but they're pre-supplied for us. Obviously, we can also create our own Boolean variables to represent situations in the real world. So for example, if it's raining or the bus is late, so if it's not raining and the bus is late, then I will walk to work. But we need to be able to create our own variables in order to represent these Boolean values for raining and bus late. So these are Boolean variables, and the Boolean data type allows us to use these Boolean variables. So rather than using an int variable, we can declare a Boolean variable to store a true or false value, and these can come in very useful. So just as before, we declare a variable with a name here, and well, with a type first, then a name, and then we can initialize it to some value, say false. Now, Boolean variables come in particularly handy when we want to implement what we call flags. So just as in real life, a flag is a signal. So for example, in football, when the flag goes up when someone's offside, in programming, a flag is like a toggle switch, which can be flipped either on or off to denote the fact that the program is in some state or another state. So for example, we can set a finished flag to be off and just keep doing things until the finished flag has the value true. So until something in the program raises the flag to denote that we've actually finished doing what we need to. So in this way, different parts of a program can have control over its flow of execution by setting or unsetting the value of a toggle switch flag variable. And that's actually really powerful. So let's look at that in the context of the bouncing ball program from last week. So imagine, for example, we want to be able to pause and unpause the ball bouncing around the screen by clicking the mouse button. So if we click when the ball is bouncing, then it essentially pauses the bouncing. And if we click the button again when it's paused, then we resume bouncing. So we can use the mouse button to essentially pause the bouncy ball. Now, on the face of it, that's quite a complicated thing to try to achieve, but it's actually really straightforward if we have a Boolean toggle switch. So what I want you to do is think about the basic algorithm for this, assuming that we have a sort of Boolean flag that we might want to call bouncing. So if bouncing is true, then the ball is bouncing, and if bouncing is false, then the ball is not bouncing. Okay, so have a think about the algorithm, pause the movie and come back. So here's the basic algorithm. So we create a Boolean flag variable called bouncing, and we set it by default to true. So the ball is bouncing when we start the program. And that's important. So bouncing is initially true. So the position of the ball only changes if bouncing is true, if the flag is true. So we do the usual screen setup, and then forever in the draw loop, we clear the canvas, we draw the ball, and then if we're bouncing, and if and only if we're bouncing, then we update the position of the ball. So if we're not bouncing, bouncing's false, then essentially all we do is clear the canvas, draw the ball, clear the canvas, draw the ball over and over and over again, but we don't update its position. We only update its position if it's bouncing. So what's missing from this pseudocode? Well, obviously we don't yet know how to change the state of bouncing. We don't yet know how to change bouncing from true to false and vice versa via the mouse. Now, we could handle this in the main draw loop, but ideally draw should only be used to display stuff. Now, there are many reasons for this, but they primarily relate to the need to keep draw as lightweight as possible, because draw, you'll recall, is called over and over and over again many times a second, and in order to avoid sort of screen lag and things looking jerky, it's best to try to spread out the effort, the computational effort of a program, into different parts of the program. Okay, so that you want to minimize the amount of work that's actually done in the draw function. And luckily processing gives us a nice way to do this, which we call events. And events allow us to handle external control, such as mouse control, in a nice, elegant fashion.